The Karthak Empire had ruled the stars for centuries. Their fleets burned worlds, their armies crushed resistance, and their priests promised them endless victory. To them, conquest was not just war, it was tradition. Every new world they found was another trophy, another reminder that no species could stand against them. And now, they had found Earth. From their orbiting ships, the blue and green planet looked small, fragile, and harmless. The Karthak commanders laughed at the idea of humans resisting them. Reports said humans believed in demons and myths. Superstition, they called it. "Let us bring them real demons," one priest whispered to the commander. "Let us show them the fire of our gods," the commander agreed. The fleet descended. The first wave of landing ships pierced the clouds and came down toward the human cities. They expected to see resistance. They expected tanks, aircraft, weapons, armies gathering to fight. But instead, they saw something strange. Silence. The city below was empty. Towers of glass and steel stood tall, but the streets had no cars, no people, no movement. New York, once filled with millions of humans, looked like a graveyard. The Karthak soldiers marched through the streets. Their heavy boots echoed against broken glass. Banners of alien symbols were raised on human buildings. Still, there was no sign of life. No shots fired. No resistance. Only silence. "This is strange," one soldier said through his translator. "Where are the humans?" The commander growled. "Hiding. They are cowards. We will drag them out." But as the night fell, the silence became heavier. The city lights, once shining bright, went dark. Shadows stretched across the streets. And from the deep tunnels below the city, the subways, the sewers, came faint sounds. Whispers. At first, the aliens thought it was the wind. But then the whispers grew louder, echoing in strange patterns. It sounded like voices, but no translation could capture the words. They were not human words. They were not any known language. They were something else. Something old. The soldiers tightened their grip on their weapons. One squad was ordered to enter the subway tunnels to investigate. Their lights cut through the darkness. The air inside was hot, humid, and filled with a smell of burning metal. The walls were scratched, deep claw marks carved into the stone. "This is not human work," one soldier whispered. The others laughed nervously. "Humans tell stories of demons. Maybe they wanted to scare us." But none of them laughed when they heard the scream. It came from the darkness ahead. One soldier vanished, dragged into the shadows before he could fire his weapon. Another followed, his armor torn apart like paper. The survivors fired blindly into the black, but nothing stopped the shadows. Something was moving fast, faster than any eye could follow. "Commander," a soldier cried into his comms. "Something is down here. It's not human. Repeat, it's not human." The commander above ground growled. "Nonsense. Humans cannot fight us." But even he froze when he heard the sounds from the tunnel through the open comms. Growls, screams, and then silence. The squad was gone. Moments later, flames erupted from a sewer vent in the middle of the street. The fire was not natural. It burned cold blue, spreading in unnatural shapes. The soldiers backed away, weapons raised. And then they saw it. Something climbed out of the vent. At first, they thought it was a human. The body shape was right, 2 arms, 2 legs. But the skin was wrong. Blackened, cracked, glowing faintly like molten rock. Its eyes burned red, and its mouth twisted into a grin too wide for any human face. The Karthak had fought many enemies in the stars. They had seen strange creatures, strange weapons, but never had they seen something like this. The alien soldiers opened fire. Plasma shots tore through the night, striking the creature again and again. But it did not fall. It walked through the storm of fire, slow and steady, like a nightmare made real. One soldier tried to run. The creature was faster. It caught him, lifted him into the air, and with a single motion broke him in half. The rest of the squad fell back, shouting into their comms for reinforcements. But the commander had no reinforcements to give. More screams came from other streets. Reports from other landing zones told the same story. Shadows, fire, creatures that should not exist. The Karthak had come to Earth expecting to conquer weak humans. Instead, they had awakened something else. As the alien commander stood in the middle of the silent city, he heard it too, the whispers. But now the whispers had changed. They were clearer, stronger, almost mocking. He turned his head, and for just a moment he saw a reflection in the glass of a ruined skyscraper. It was not his reflection. It was a face with burning eyes staring back at him. The commander felt fear, real fear, for the first time in his life. "Report!" he shouted, trying to steady his voice, but all he heard from the comms was a broken, panicked scream. "This is not human technology. This is hell." The streets of New York were no longer silent. They were filled with screams, with the sound of alien weapons firing into the night, and with something else, low growls and whispers that carried through the air like a curse. The Carthage soldiers had faced many enemies in their history. They had defeated empires, crushed rebellions, and burned whole planets to ash. But none of that experience mattered here, because what they faced in the tunnels of Earth was not an enemy that could be reasoned with, or even understood. It was something that should not exist. The commander of the landing force paced inside the ruined lobby of a skyscraper. His armor was heavy, his weapons advanced, but his hands would not stop shaking. Reports came from every squad. Shadows moving faster than light, fire that burned without fuel, creatures that wore human shapes, but twisted them into something unnatural. "Control your fear," he shouted to his soldiers. "They are tricks, illusions. Humans are weak. Do not forget who you are." But even as he spoke, another explosion lit up the night. A nearby unit screamed for help before going silent. Static replaced their voices. The commander's jaw tightened. He could not lie to himself anymore. Whatever this was, it was real. One squad, desperate to find survivors, entered another subway tunnel. Their armor lights pushed back the thick darkness, but only for a few steps. The deeper they went, the darker it became, as if the shadows themselves were alive. The walls were covered in strange symbols, burned into the stone. Symbols that no alien translator could read. The soldiers felt their chests tighten, their breaths short. "Commander," one whispered into his comms, "there is something written here. It feels wrong, like it is watching us." The others told him to be quiet, but it was already too late. A sound moved through the tunnel. Not footsteps, not claws, something heavier. The ground shook with each echo. The soldiers raised their weapons, eyes darting back and forth. The air grew hotter, the smell of smoke filling their helmets. Then they saw it. From the shadows, a figure crawled forward on all fours. Its body twisted unnaturally, its back arched, its face stretched. It moved like a broken puppet, bones snapping as it crawled closer. Its eyes glowed red and its teeth were long and sharp. The soldiers fired instantly, blue plasma filling the tunnel. The creature screamed, its voice a horrible mixture of man and beast, of pain and joy. The blasts tore chunks of flesh from its body, but the flesh grew back, sealing the wounds as if nothing had happened. One soldier tried to retreat, but the creature leapt forward, faster than the eye could follow. It landed on him, claws tearing through armor as if it was cloth. The others fired again, but their shots hit both monster and comrade alike. In seconds there was nothing left of him. Panic spread. The squad broke formation, running deeper into the tunnels. But the deeper they ran, the more whispers filled their ears. Dozens of voices chanting, mocking, laughing. "Do you hear that?" one soldier gasped. "It's inside my head." Another screamed, dropping his weapon as he tore at his helmet. Blood poured from his ears. He collapsed, convulsing as the whispers grew louder. The survivors fired wildly into the darkness. They thought they saw shapes moving, long claws, glowing eyes, grinning mouths, but nothing solid. Just shadows, shadows that killed. Back on the surface, the commander listened to their last transmission. Screams, gunfire, and then silence. He crushed the comms in his fist. His soldiers were not weak. They were elite, trained killers. And yet they were being hunted like animals. He looked around the ruined city. His forces had landed across multiple human cities, from New York to London, from Tokyo to Rio. And everywhere, the reports were the same. Disappearances, whispers, creatures of fire and shadow. This was no accident. The humans had planned this, but how? The commander turned to his priest advisor. The priest's face was pale, his mandibles clicking nervously. "This world is cursed," the priest whispered. "These are not men. These are not weapons. This is hell." The commander spat on the ground. "There is no hell. There are only enemies to be crushed." But even as he spoke, the building shook. A roar echoed through the night, so loud it shattered windows across the street. Every soldier froze, every weapon lowered. And then, from the corner of his eye, the commander saw movement. Something massive moved between the buildings. its form hidden by the smoke and shadows. It was taller than a tank, wider than a ship. Its steps cracked the pavement. The alien commander felt his chest tighten. His mind screamed at him to run. For the first time in his life, he understood what true fear was. He raised his communicator, his voice trembling. High above the Earth, the Karthak fleet circled the planet like vultures. Their warships were armed with weapons that had destroyed civilizations before. But now the mighty ships of the Empire were filled with panic. Every landing zone was in chaos. Soldiers reported creatures of fire and shadow. Entire squads vanished without a trace. Warships in orbit sent desperate messages. Intruders had boarded them. Things that crawled through the vents, things that wore dead soldiers' faces like masks. The fleet commander listened in silence. His hands trembled as each message ended in static and screams. For the first time, he realized the truth. Earth was not defenseless, it was a trap. But who had set it? The Karthak believed humans were primitive. Their satellites, their technology, their weapons, nothing compared to alien power. And yet, somehow, the humans had created monsters that even the Empire could not stop. The commander demanded answers. His priests called it hell. His soldiers called it demons. But deep inside, he feared something worse. This was human work. And he was right. Beneath the surface of Earth, hidden in bunkers and tunnels deeper than mountains, humans had been preparing for centuries. They had always feared the stars. They knew that one day someone would come, and when that day arrived, Earth refused to be a victim. The humans built weapons not of steel, but of fear. The program was called Project Hades. It began in secret during the old wars of Earth, when humans first learned how fear could break armies. They studied myths, legends, the nightmares of every culture. Demons, monsters, spirits. They asked themselves a simple question. What if fear could be made real? Scientists and soldiers worked in silence, buried under the earth. They combined genetic experiments, nanotechnology, and weapons of fire and sound. They created things that were not alive yet not dead. Beasts that could heal faster than bullets could wound them. Shadows that could crawl into the mind and whisper madness. These were not accidents. They were designed. For centuries, the world above lived in peace, never knowing. But deep underground, Project Hades grew, waiting for the day Earth would be invaded. And now that day had come. The horrors of Project Hades were released. They spread through the cities, through the tunnels, through the very soil of Earth. They hunted the invaders without mercy. On one ship in orbit, alarms screamed. A group of alien officers gathered in the command chamber, staring at security screens. Shadows moved across the halls, attacking crew members. Soldiers fired, but their bullets passed through nothing but smoke. Moments later, the smoke solidified into claws and teeth, tearing them apart. One officer shouted, "It's impossible! No creature can survive in space." But then they saw it. A human figure, burned and broken, floating through the airlock. Its mouth opened, and fire poured out. The lights on the ship flickered. Systems shut down. The crew screamed as the figure moved through the corridors, faster than the eye could follow. The officer sent a final message before the ship went silent. "They are inside. They are using fear as a weapon. This is not war. This is hell." Down on the planet, the Karthak commander finally understood. He gathered his remaining officers. "These are not demons," he said slowly. "These are not gods. This is human design. Humans have created their own monsters. They made hell itself." The priest beside him hissed in terror. "But why? Why would they do this to their own world?" The commander turned, his eyes cold. "Because they were waiting for us." Silence fell. The truth was more terrifying than any superstition. The humans were not victims. They were hunters. They had made fear into a weapon, and the Karthak had walked straight into their trap. Above them, another warship exploded. A burning piece of wreckage crashed into the city, shaking the ground. The sky glowed red from fire. The commander stared upward, his voice shaking. "If humans have made hell, then we are already damned." But even as he spoke, something worse happened. One of the fleet's largest ships began to rise from orbit, its engines burning bright. The commander thought it was retreating. But then, without warning, the ship split apart in flames. The cause was clear. Something had come aboard, something the humans had sent, and now, no place in the galaxy would ever be safe again. The Karthak Empire had never known fear. Their fleets had conquered hundreds of worlds, Their armies had crushed every rival. But now, orbiting Earth, fear was the only thing left inside their ships. Every communication channel was filled with panic. Soldiers begged for help. Officers shouted in confusion. Priests prayed to their gods, asking for light in the endless darkness, but no light came. "Only whispers, do you hear them?" one alien soldier asked, his hands shaking on his weapon. "Voices everywhere." "They speak inside my skull." Another soldier turned on him, furious. "There are no voices. Control yourself." But even as he spoke, the lights flickered. The sound of claws scraped along the ceiling. Something was moving above them. The Karthak opened fire, but their weapons hit nothing. Only shadows. Shadows that moved. Shadows that laughed. The alien fleet commander tried to restore order. He shouted through the intercom, "Remember who you are. You are warriors of the Empire. No shadows can harm you." But his words were drowned out by screams. On one ship, an officer sent his final message. "They are everywhere. They wear our dead as skins. They smile with our faces. Do not trust anyone. Do not—" The transmission cut off. The fleet commander lowered his head. Half the ships had already gone silent. Others were burning in orbit, their broken bodies falling through Earth's atmosphere like meteors. The invasion force, once mighty, was dying, and on the ground things were worse. In New York, in London, in Tokyo, in every city they had landed, the demons of Project Hades hunted without rest. They dragged soldiers into the dark. They tore apart armored vehicles with their claws. They whispered madness into the ears of the survivors until they turned their weapons on themselves. The aliens had tried everything: flamethrowers, plasma cannons, explosives. Nothing worked. Fire only made the creatures stronger. Shadows only spread wider. The humans had made fear into a weapon, and now fear was winning. The fleet commander turned to his priest, desperate. "Pray harder. Call upon the gods of the Empire. We need their strength." The priest closed his many eyes, muttering sacred words. His voice shook with each phrase, and then a voice answered. But it was not the voice of his gods, it was human. "Cold, calm, merciless, your gods cannot hear you," the voice said. "You came to Earth seeking demons. You found them. You will not leave alive." The priest fell to his knees, trembling. They are listening. The humans are inside our prayers." The commander's blood froze. This was no longer war. This was psychological destruction. The humans had turned even their faith into a battlefield. From orbit, the commander gave a final order. Retreat. Ships tried to break free of Earth's orbit, engines roaring as they prepared for hyperspace. The Karthak believed escape was still possible, that if they could leave, the nightmare would end. But Earth did not allow them to leave. As the first ship powered up its jump engines, something impossible happened. Fire erupted inside the hyperspace core, tearing the vessel in half. Survivors swore they saw claws, massive claws, closing around the ship as it exploded. On another ship, the crew tried to launch escape pods. But when the pods opened in space, the soldiers inside screamed. Shadows had already entered with them. The pods went silent one by one, floating like coffins around the burning wreckage. The commander's heart pounded in his chest. For the first time in his long life, he felt true despair. His army was not losing. His army was already dead. Below, the demons marched openly through the human cities. Flames lit the sky red. Their roars echoed through the streets. And then, for the first time, the surviving Karthak saw human soldiers. They were not hiding anymore. They stood tall, armored in black, watching silently as their creations tore the invaders apart. They did not look afraid. They did not look human anymore. They looked like executioners. One human commander raised his weapon. His voice carried through loudspeakers across the battlefield. "You wanted demons," he said. "So we gave you hell." The words spread like fire, reaching every alien ear, every desperate survivor. And in that moment, the Karthak understood the truth. They had not discovered Earth. Earth had lured them here. And Earth was not defending itself. Earth was punishing them. The Karthak invasion was no longer an invasion. It was a massacre, but not the kind the aliens had expected. Their mighty soldiers, their armored machines, their warships in orbit, all were burning, falling, or vanishing in silence. Fear spread faster than fire. Discipline, once their greatest strength, was gone. The Karthak Empire had never faced an enemy like this, and for the first time since the battle began, the humans stepped out from the shadows. The first appearance came in the ruins of New York. As alien soldiers fired blindly into the darkness, a squad of human soldiers emerged from the smoke. Their armor was black, smooth and sharp, marked with a red insignia that glowed faintly in the night. Their weapons were strange, long rifles that hummed with energy, blades that shimmered like fire. But more terrifying than their weapons was their calmness. The humans walked through streets filled with corpses and fire as if they owned the battlefield. Behind them, creatures of Project Hades, those twisted shadows and burning monsters, followed like hunting dogs. One alien soldier screamed and opened fire. The plasma bolt struck a human soldier's chest plate, but the armor absorbed it with barely a flicker. The human raised his rifle and fired once. The alien fell instantly. Armor melted, body burned. The rest of the squad froze. This was not the weak, fragile species they had been told about. This was something else. A human commander stepped forward. His voice carried across the battlefield through speakers built into his armor. "You came to Earth seeking demons," he said, his tone cold and steady. "So we made our own." The words echoed through the ruins. The alien soldiers shook with fear. The commander continued, his voice rising like a judge delivering a sentence. "For centuries we knew the stars were dangerous. We knew one day someone would come. And when that day arrived, we refused to kneel. We built weapons you cannot imagine. We turned fear into fire. We turned nightmares into flesh. You thought to bring us hell," he paused. The ground trembled as one of the giant beasts of Project Hades roared in the distance. Flames lit the sky red. "No," the commander said. "Earth is hell." The words shattered whatever courage the aliens had left. Some dropped their weapons. Others tried to flee. But there was nowhere to run. Shadows chased them. Fire swallowed them. Human soldiers advanced step by step, cold and merciless, until the streets belonged to them again. In orbit, the alien fleet commander received reports of this scene from every city. At first, he did not believe it, but when his own cameras captured human soldiers walking calmly through battlefields filled with monsters, he knew the truth. The humans were not allies of demons. The humans were the demons. The fleet commander whispered to himself. They were never weak. They were waiting. The priest beside him trembled, his voice broken. "We should never have come here. Earth is cursed. Earth is damned." But the commander did not answer. His eyes were locked on the images of humans marching side by side with their creations. He knew now. This war was over. Back on the ground, the human commander raised his arm, signaling his soldiers. The black-armored troops spread out, securing the ruins. Not a single alien survived in the streets. The commander knelt beside a fallen alien and removed his helmet, revealing his human face at last. His eyes were cold, his skin scarred, his expression merciless. He spoke not to the alien, but to the listening galaxy. "You will carry this story back to your stars. You will tell them what you saw here. Earth is not a prize. Earth is not prey. Earth is where empires die." The soldier stood, sliding his helmet back into place. The monsters of Project Hades growled behind him, ready to continue the hunt. Far above, the alien fleet began to retreat, engines glowing as they prepared for hyperspace. But the humans were not finished. The commander looked to the sky, his voice steady as he spoke a single order. "Do not let them leave." The Carthac fleet had only one thought left: escape. Dozens of ships turned their engines toward the stars, trying to break free from Earth's orbit. The invasion had become a disaster beyond imagination. Their soldiers were gone. Their weapons had failed. Their priests were silent. All that remained was fear. Inside the flagship, the fleet commander gave the order. "All vessels, prepare hyperspace jump. Leave this cursed world behind." Engines roared to life. Hyperspace cores hummed, glowing bright as the fleet prepared to vanish into the safety of the void. Hope, faint and fragile, returned for a moment. If they could escape, perhaps the Empire could rebuild. Perhaps they could forget this nightmare. But Earth had other plans. On the ground, human commanders watched from hidden bunkers deep beneath the ruined cities. Their voices were calm, their faces without emotion. One word was spoken into their comms: "Activate the gate." Above Earth, reality itself shivered. The Carthac ships preparing to jump suddenly froze in place. Their navigation systems failed. Their engines died. The stars before them bent, twisted, and folded like paper. From Earth's orbit, something impossible opened, a tear in space, a vast, burning rift of fire and darkness. It was not a portal made by gods, nor a natural phenomenon. It was a weapon. A human weapon, the gate of hell. The fleeing ships tried to resist, but the rift pulled them back, dragging them like toys into its burning maw. Crews screamed as their vessels cracked under the pressure. Torn apart by forces no alien technology could fight. The commander of the flagship clung to his chair, watching in horror as one by one his ships vanished into the rift. He shouted into his comms, "Fight it! Fight it!" But there was no fighting, only falling. The first ship was swallowed whole, then the second, then 10 more. Their signals went silent. No survivors, and through the rift came voices, not alien, not demonic, human voices. Calm, cold, merciless. "You wanted hell," the voices whispered. "So we built it." The commander's hands trembled. He had faced death before. But this was different. This was final. This was not just the end of a battle. It was the end of his people's pride. He whispered to himself, "What kind of monsters create this?" And then he understood. Humans were not monsters. They were worse. Monsters acted by nature. Humans acted by choice. The flagship's engines roared as the crew made one last desperate attempt to escape. But the rift pulled harder. Systems overloaded. Fires spread across the bridge. The last thing the commander saw was Earth, small and silent below, watching with cold patience as his empire died. Then the gate closed and his ship was gone. Silence returned to orbit. No alien ships remained, only wreckage and burning fragments falling through the atmosphere. On the ground, the human commander stood in the ruins of New York, staring at the night sky. The battle was over. The invaders were gone. Around him, black-armored soldiers moved through the streets, and the beasts of Project Hades melted back into the shadows. Returning to the depths where they had been born, the humans had won. But there were no cheers. No celebration, only silence. Because the humans knew this was not the end. This was the beginning. In a hidden bunker, a signal was prepared. It was not for Earth, it was for the galaxy. The message was simple, spoken in a cold human voice that carried across the stars. "This is Earth. We are not weak. We are not prey. If you come here, you will not find a home. You will not find victory. You will find hell. Remember this. We do not pray to demons. We become them." The message repeated again and again across every frequency, carried far into space, and the galaxy listened. On distant worlds, empires paused. Armies hesitated. For the first time in history, the galaxy looked toward Earth with fear. The humans had revealed their secret, and their final warning echoed forever. Do not come to Earth.